There are mysteries in this world that don't simply spark curiosity, they create discomfort. Not because they belong to fantasy or myth, but because they exist inside real, documented history while refusing to behave the way history is supposed to. We live in an age of satellites, deep Earth scanners, carbon dating, and artificial intelligence, yet there are ancient places, structures, and objects that modern science still cannot fully explain. Some are hidden deliberately, some are sealed by danger, some were erased by time, and some exist in a space where logic itself seems to hesitate. These mysteries are not fairy tales, they are the moments where history quietly breaks its own rules. History teaches us to expect patterns. Large civilizations should leave large traces: tools, records, waste, infrastructure. Human progress is meant to move forward step by step, from hunter-gatherers to farmers, from villages to cities, from stone to metal to machines. Knowledge, once discovered, is supposed to spread, evolve, and leave footprints behind. And yet, scattered across the ancient world are anomalies that ignore every one of these expectations. Massive constructions with no clear tools. Sophisticated designs appearing far earlier than they should. Entire cultures vanishing without a clean ending. Knowledge hinted at but never fully revealed. What makes these mysteries feel dark is not superstition, but uncertainty. They suggest that the past may contain lost engineering we no longer use, sealed chambers we choose not to open, or chapters of human history that were buried intentionally. Standing in front of such places creates a strange psychological effect. When a door is locked, humans don't forget what's behind it, they obsess over it. And history has locked doors. Literal ones. Tombs that remain unopened, burial sites no one can locate, libraries that vanished but shaped the world, temples older than civilization itself, and stones so heavy they challenge the limits of what we believe ancient people could achieve. Every locked door creates two realities, what we know and what we suspect. And between those two exists the uncomfortable truth that some answers may be gone forever, or worse, deliberately withheld. The stories we are about to explore are not united by geography, culture, or time. They span continents and thousands of years. Yet they all share one thing in common. They represent moments where civilization feels less like a straight line of progress and more like a fractured memory, full of gaps, silences, and erased knowledge. As we move forward, you'll hear theories that range from cautious to extreme. But this journey is not about chasing wild explanations for the sake of excitement. It is about atmosphere, evidence, and restraint. When something is proven, we will treat it as fact. When it is theory, we will call it theory. And when it is legend, we will leave it where it belongs, without pretending it is truth. Because the reality is already unsettling enough. Imagine standing before an ancient site where the stone is cut too cleanly, the scale feels wrong, and the silence feels intentional. No inscriptions to explain it. No tools left behind. Just precision, ambition, and absence. That moment, when the past refuses to speak, is where this story begins. And as you'll soon discover, some of history's greatest mysteries have survived not because they are impossible to solve, but because modern humanity has chosen not to solve them at all. Beneath a quiet green mound near the ancient city of Elevenum lies one of the most powerful sealed spaces in human history, a place that has been known, measured, and deliberately left untouched for more than 2,000 years. This is the tomb of Qin Shi Huang, the first emperor to unite China, a ruler whose ambition reshaped an entire civilization and whose burial was designed not as a grave, but as an underground empire meant to last forever. Construction began when he was still a child, long before he conquered rival states, and continued relentlessly for decades, involving hundreds of thousands of laborers, artisans, engineers, and soldiers. Above ground, the site appears deceptively ordinary, but beneath the soil lies a massive artificial landscape, palaces, towers, courtyards, and a central chamber believed to contain the emperor himself, all surrounded by an army frozen in clay. The terracotta soldiers, now one of the most famous archaeological discoveries on Earth, were only the outer defense. Ancient texts describe something far more unsettling deeper inside. Mechanical traps designed to kill intruders, ceilings painted to resemble the stars, and rivers of liquid mercury flowing through the tomb to symbolize the great waterways of China, eternally circulating around the emperor's body. For centuries, these descriptions were dismissed as exaggeration, the kind of myth historians often associate with absolute rulers. But modern science has complicated that dismissal. Surveys conducted with ground-penetrating radar and soil analysis have revealed unnatural structures beneath the mound and mercury levels far higher than normal, so high that they cannot be explained by natural causes. The ancient historian Sima Qian's account, once considered poetic fiction, now appears disturbingly accurate. And yet, despite having the technology to excavate the site, archaeologists refuse to open it. The reason is not ignorance, but fear that exposure to air would instantly destroy fragile materials such as silk, wood, pigments, and texts, just as the vibrant colors of the terracotta warriors vanished moments after excavation. Fear that mercury contamination could cause irreversible environmental damage. Fear that whatever remains inside, preserved for over 2 millennia, would be lost forever the moment the seal is broken. Beyond science, there is something deeper at work. In Chinese culture, imperial tombs are sacred spaces, and Qin Shi Huang is not just another ruler, he is the embodiment of unity, authority, and the birth of the Chinese state itself. Disturbing his resting place is seen not merely as excavation, but as violation. Even government agencies release survey data cautiously, aware that this tomb represents more than archaeology, it represents identity, history, and power. Some researchers quietly speculate that the tomb may contain lost records, technologies, or knowledge that could alter our understanding of ancient engineering and governance. Others suggest that its preservation may be intentional, a message carried forward through time, that some knowledge is meant to remain sealed. Today, millions of visitors walk among the terracotta warriors, unaware that they are standing at the edge of something far larger and far stranger. The central chamber remains closed, untouched, and silent, a perfectly preserved world waiting beneath the earth. It is not lost. It is not forgotten. It is simply unopened. And that choice, to leave it sealed, forces us to confront an unsettling idea. Sometimes the greatest mysteries of the past survive not because they are hidden, but because we are afraid of what might happen if we uncover them. Across the vast grasslands and mountains of Mongolia lies a mystery defined not by what we see, but by what we cannot find. Somewhere beneath this immense and unforgiving landscape rests the body of Genghis Khan, the man who built the largest contiguous empire in human history, yet whose final resting place has vanished so completely that even centuries of searching have produced nothing more than theories. He died in 1227 at the height of his power, having conquered lands stretching from the Pacific coast to Eastern Europe, and yet unlike almost every other ruler of comparable influence, he left behind no tomb, no monument, no visible trace. According to Mongol tradition, this was by design. Genghis Khan is said to have ordered that his burial remain secret forever, an instruction carried out with ruthless precision. Legends claim that the funeral escort killed anyone who crossed their path as they transported his body back to Mongolia, and that those who participated in the burial were themselves executed to ensure silence. Some stories go even further, describing thousands of horses driven across the burial site to erase all signs of disturbance, while others speak of rivers being diverted or forests planted to conceal the grave beneath nature itself. What makes this absence so unsettling is that it appears deliberate, systematic, and successful. The secret history of the Mongols, the oldest surviving record of Mongol history, mentions Genghis Khan's death but offers no hint of where he was buried. Marco Polo, writing generations later while living under Mongol rule, stated that even the Mongols themselves did not know the location. This level of secrecy is unprecedented. Archaeologists have searched for decades using satellite imagery, drones, ground surveys, and historical mapping, focusing particularly on the Khenti Mountains near Burkhan Khaldan, a sacred region tied closely to Genghis Khan's life. Yet excavation efforts are consistently blocked, not by governments, but by the Mongolian people themselves, who consider the land holy and the disturbance of their ancestors' grave an unforgivable act. To them, the mystery is not a problem to be solved, but a wish to be respected. The possibility that the tomb contains unimaginable wealth only deepens the intrigue. Genghis Khan's empire controlled trade routes, cities, and treasures across continents, and many believe his burial may hold artifacts collected from China, Persia, and beyond. Others warn of curses, guardian spirits, or fatal accidents that seem to follow those who search too aggressively. But beneath the legends lies a more profound truth. This is one of the rare cases where a civilization succeeded in erasing a ruler's physical legacy while preserving his influence. The land remains wild, remote, and largely untouched, as if history itself agreed to protect the secret. And so the tomb of Genghis Khan remains not just undiscovered, but unreachable, a reminder that absolute power does not always seek immortality through stone and monuments. Sometimes, it chooses silence. And that silence, stretching across 8 centuries, may be the most powerful monument of all. Hidden deep within the controlled silence of Sweden's National Library rests an object so unsettling that it has refused to become ordinary history, no matter how many scholars have examined it. The Codex Gigas, often called the Devil's Bible, is not merely famous because of its size, though its dimensions alone are enough to shock anyone who sees it. Weighing nearly 75 kilograms, standing almost a meter tall, and bound with pages made from the skins of hundreds of calves, this medieval manuscript feels less like a book and more like a monument. But what has truly kept it alive in the collective imagination for nearly 8 centuries is not its physical presence, but the story attached to it, a story that refuses to die, no matter how rational modern explanations try to bury it. According to legend, the Codex Gigas was created in the early 13th century by a Benedictine monk living in a monastery in what is now the Czech Republic. The monk, whose name has been lost to time, was said to have committed a crime so severe that his punishment was to be sealed alive within the monastery walls, a sentence designed to ensure not just death, but erasure. Facing a slow and horrifying end, the monk begged for mercy and made an impossible promise. He claimed that if given a single night, he would create a book containing all human knowledge, scripture, science, history, medicine, and the unseen forces that govern the world. The monks, knowing this could not be achieved by any human hand, agreed. And that is where the legend takes a darker turn. As the night wore on and the task proved overwhelming, the monk is said to have called upon the devil himself, offering his soul in exchange for help. By dawn, the book was complete. And in gratitude, or perhaps submission, the monk illustrated a full-page image of Satan within its pages, staring outward with hollow eyes, frozen forever in ink. What makes this story disturbingly persistent is how closely it aligns with physical evidence that modern scholars still struggle to explain. The Codex Gigas appears to have been written by a single hand, using the same ink, the same style, and the same level of precision from the first page to the last. There are no signs of fading, no tremors of aging handwriting, no inconsistencies that suggest multiple scribes or decades of gradual work. Linguists and paleographers estimate that writing the entire manuscript at a normal medieval pace would have taken at least 20 to 30 years of continuous labor. Yet the uniformity suggests something else entirely, either an unnatural level of discipline sustained without interruption, or a process that defies normal human limits. Inside the Codex Gigas lies a strange and unsettling combination of content. It contains the complete Latin Bible, yet it also includes medical texts, historical chronicles, calendars, magical formulas, exorcism rituals, and lists of demons. There are sections dedicated to healing the body and others focused on protecting the soul from evil forces, as if the author believed both were under constant threat. What stands out most is the deliberate balance between Holy Scripture and forbidden knowledge. This was not accidental. In medieval Europe, combining such material in one volume would have been deeply controversial, even dangerous. And yet, here it is, preserved, deliberate, and unapologetic. At the center of the manuscript is the most infamous page of all, the full-page illustration of the devil. Unlike other medieval depictions, this image is not symbolic or abstract. The devil is shown standing upright, occupying the entire page, staring directly outward. His claws are exaggerated, his tongue long and red, his eyes vacant and disturbing. Opposite this image is a depiction of the heavenly city, creating a visual confrontation between salvation and damnation. The placement feels intentional, as if the reader is being forced to choose, or at least to acknowledge the tension between the two. This single illustration has done more to fuel legends than any written text in the book. Why would a religious manuscript dedicate such prominence to the devil? And why was it allowed to survive intact through centuries of religious scrutiny? According to legend, The Codex Gigas was created in the early 13th century by a Benedictine monk living in a monastery in what is now the Czech Republic. The monk, whose name has been lost to time, was said to have committed a crime so severe that his punishment was to be sealed alive within the monastery walls, a sentence designed to ensure not just death, but erasure. Facing a slow and horrifying end, the monk begged for mercy and made an impossible promise. He claimed that if given a single night, he would create a book containing all human knowledge, scripture, science, history, medicine, and the unseen forces that govern the world. The monks, knowing this could not be achieved by any human hand, agreed. And that is where the legend takes a darker turn. As the night wore on and the task proved overwhelming, the monk is said to have called upon the devil himself, offering his soul in exchange for help. By dawn, the book was complete. And in gratitude, or perhaps submission, the monk illustrated a full-page image of Satan within its pages, staring outward with hollow eyes, frozen forever in ink. What makes this story disturbingly persistent is how closely it aligns with physical evidence that modern scholars still struggle to explain. The Codex Gigas appears to have been written by a single hand, using the same ink, the same style, and the same level of precision from the first page to the last. There are no signs of fading, no tremors of aging handwriting, no inconsistencies that suggest multiple scribes or decades of gradual work. Linguists and paleographers estimate that writing the entire manuscript at a normal medieval pace would have taken at least 20 to 30 years of continuous labor. Yet the uniformity suggests something else entirely, either an unnatural level of discipline sustained without interruption, or a process that defies normal human limits. Inside the Codex Gigas lies a strange and unsettling combination of content. It contains the complete Latin Bible, yet it also includes medical texts, historical chronicles, calendars, magical formulas, exorcism rituals, and lists of demons. There are sections dedicated to healing the body and others focused on protecting the soul from evil forces, as if the author believed both were under constant threat. What stands out most is the deliberate balance between Holy Scripture and forbidden knowledge. This was not accidental. In medieval Europe, combining such material in one volume would have been deeply controversial, even dangerous. And yet, here it is, preserved, deliberate, and unapologetic. At the center of the manuscript is the most infamous page of all, the full-page illustration of the devil. Unlike other medieval depictions, this image is not symbolic or abstract. The devil is shown standing upright, occupying the entire page, staring directly outward. His claws are exaggerated, his tongue long and red, his eyes vacant and disturbing. Opposite this image is a depiction of the heavenly city, creating a visual confrontation between salvation and damnation. The placement feels intentional, as if the reader is being forced to choose, or at least to acknowledge the tension between the two. This single illustration has done more to fuel legends than any written text in the book. Why would a religious manuscript dedicate such prominence to the devil? And why was it allowed to survive intact through centuries of religious scrutiny? The Codex Gigas did not live a quiet life. Over the centuries, it passed through monasteries, survived fires, wars, and political upheavals. In the 17th century, it was seized by Swedish forces during the 30 Years' War and transported to Stockholm as a war trophy, where it has remained ever since. Wherever the manuscript went, misfortune seemed to follow. Monasteries housing it suffered decline, rulers who possessed it faced disaster, and institutions connected to it collapsed. While historians caution against superstition, the pattern is difficult to ignore. Even today, librarians handle the book with extreme care, not just because of its fragility, but because of its reputation. Modern science has tried to strip the Codex Gigas of its mystery, offering explanations grounded in psychology and monastic life. Some suggest the monk may have suffered from a condition that allowed intense, obsessive focus. Others argue that the uniform handwriting could be the result of copying earlier texts over many years under controlled conditions. Yet none of these explanations fully address the deeper question: why create such a book at all? Why gather sacred scripture, medical knowledge, demonology, and magic into a single volume unless the creator believed the world itself was governed by a fragile balance between order and chaos? The Codex Gigas represents something uncomfortable for modern audiences. It suggests that medieval people were not simply ignorant or fearful, but deeply aware of contradictions in human existence. They did not separate science from faith, or medicine from magic, the way we do today. To them, knowledge was holistic, and danger came not from learning too much, but from pretending darkness did not exist. The Devil's Bible is not a celebration of evil, it is an acknowledgement of it. And that acknowledgement may be what makes it so enduring. What unsettles historians most is not the legend of the devil's involvement, but the fact that no definitive explanation has replaced it. The manuscript refuses to become ordinary. It resists categorization. It does not fit neatly into religious history, literary history, or folklore. Instead, it sits at the intersection of all three, challenging modern assumptions about what people of the past believed, feared, and understood. And perhaps that is why the Codex Gigas still matters. In an age where information is fragmented, controlled, and curated, this book stands as a reminder of a time when knowledge was dangerous, when writing something down could cost you your life, and when the boundary between faith and forbidden curiosity was thin and fragile. Whether or not the devil had any hand in its creation may ultimately be irrelevant. The true mystery is why, after 800 years, it still makes us uncomfortable. And why, despite all our technology and confidence, we are no closer to fully understanding the mind that created it. Because some artifacts do not exist to be solved. They exist to remind us that history is not always safe, clean, or reassuring. Some parts of the past are meant to disturb us. And the Codex Gigas, silent and immovable behind glass, continues to do exactly that. There are moments in human history where stone itself seems to mock our understanding, where ancient construction rises beyond what modern engineering should allow, and nowhere is that challenge more visible than in the colossal ruins of Baalbek in present-day Lebanon. At first glance, Baalbek appears like many Roman sites, with towering columns and temple remains worn by centuries of wind and war, but beneath that familiar appearance lies something deeply unsettling. Hidden within the foundation of the Temple of Jupiter are stones so massive that even today, with cranes, hydraulics, and computer modeling, moving them would push modern engineering to its limits. These stones, known as the trilithon, are each nearly 20 meters long, over 4 meters high, and weigh between 700 and 800 tons. To understand the scale, each block weighs more than a fully loaded Boeing aircraft, yet they are stacked with precision so exact that a blade cannot be slid between them. There is no written Roman record explaining how this was done, no diagrams, no accounts, no celebration of a feat that should have been considered miraculous even by Roman standards. What deepens the mystery is that nearby, in the ancient quarry, even larger stones remain partially carved and abandoned. The so-called stone of the pregnant woman weighs nearly 1,000 tons, and a newer discovery revealed a block weighing over 1,600 tons, the largest stone ever known to be cut by human hands. These stones were never moved, never placed, and never explained. If the Romans could move them, why leave them behind? And if they could not, why cut them in the first place? The quarry sits only a short distance from the temple, yet transporting stones of this magnitude even across a few hundred meters would require methods unknown to us today. Wooden rollers would collapse, ropes would snap, and earth ramps would buckle under the weight. Roman cranes, well documented elsewhere, could lift no more than 60 to 100 tons at most. The math does not work. The physics refuse to cooperate. This has led many scholars to question whether the Romans were truly responsible for the foundation at all. Some argue that Baalbek was built atop a far older structure, inherited and expanded by the Romans but not originally created by them. This idea is not without precedent. Throughout history, conquering civilizations have often repurposed older sacred sites, layering their own monuments on top of what came before. If this is true, then Baalbek may be the legacy of a civilization whose name, language, and methods have been erased entirely. A culture capable of manipulating stone on a scale that modern engineers still struggle to explain. The stones themselves offer no clues. They bear no inscriptions, no markings of tools that clearly indicate how they were shaped or moved. All that remains is their impossible presence. A similar silence surrounds another ancient giant, the unfinished obelisk of Aswan in Egypt. Lying cracked and abandoned in a granite quarry, this single block of stone reveals both extraordinary ambition and haunting mystery. If completed, it would have stood over 41 meters tall and weighed approximately 1,200 tons, making it the largest obelisk ever attempted by the ancient Egyptians. Unlike Baalbek, the obelisk was never raised, never transported, and never finished, frozen instead in the moment where ancient dreams collided with physical reality. The obelisk allows archaeologists a rare glimpse into ancient stoneworking methods. Dolerite pounding stones were used to carve the granite, and wooden wedges were likely inserted into carved channels, soaked with water to expand and fracture the rock. These techniques are ingenious, but they raise a critical question: why attempt something so enormous if the risks were so high? The official explanation is that a crack appeared during carving, rendering the obelisk unusable. But cracks are not rare in stonework, and ancient builders were skilled at adapting their designs. Why abandon the project entirely rather than reduce its size? Why leave it where it lay, rather than salvage portions for other monuments? Some scholars suggest political instability or the death of Queen Hatshepsut halted the project, but records from her reign show no sudden collapse that would justify such a complete abandonment. Others speculate that the crack may not have been the true reason at all. Instead, the obelisk may represent the limit of what ancient Egyptian engineering could safely achieve, a boundary they crossed and could not retreat from. What connects Baalbek and Aswan is not just size, but intention. These were not practical structures. They were symbolic, monumental, and arguably excessive. They suggest civilizations driven by ideas larger than utility, cultures willing to invest enormous resources into expressions of power, divinity, or cosmic order. In Egypt, obelisks represented the Ben stone, the first mound of creation where the sun god emerged. In Baalbek, the platform may have served a function lost to time, possibly ritualistic, astronomical, or symbolic of dominance over nature itself. In both cases, the stones challenge our assumptions about ancient limitations. Modern engineering analysis often approaches these sites with the question of how, but perhaps the more important question is why. Why carve stones larger than anything you can safely move? Why stack blocks so massive that they serve no structural necessity beyond intimidation? Why build foundations capable of supporting structures that never existed? These are not the actions of societies merely solving practical problems. They are the actions of civilizations expressing beliefs, identities, and ambitions that may not align with modern logic. Some researchers have proposed that ancient builders understood stone in ways we no longer do. They may have exploited natural resonance, vibration, or loss techniques involving sound or water lubrication. While such ideas remain speculative, they persist because conventional explanations fail to satisfy the evidence. It is easier to dismiss these theories than to accept that something fundamental about ancient knowledge has been lost. And yet history is filled with lost technologies. Roman concrete outperformed modern mixes for centuries. Greek fire burned on water and was never replicated. Damascus steel possessed properties modern metallurgy still struggles to fully reproduce. The idea that stoneworking techniques could also vanish is not unreasonable. Baalbek and the unfinished obelisk stand as physical contradictions. They exist in a world where history claims certain limits, yet they defy those limits simply by being there. They do not need legends or myths to be mysterious. Their weight, scale, and silence are enough. Every attempt to explain them fully leaves behind unanswered questions, and every answer seems to open a deeper uncertainty. Perhaps the most unsettling possibility is that ancient civilizations understood something about cooperation, labor, and long-term vision that modern societies have lost. These projects would have required generations of planning, unwavering authority, and a shared belief system strong enough to justify decades of effort for a result no individual might ever live to see completed. That alone suggests a mindset radically different from our own. In the end, Baalbek's stones remain stacked, the obelisk remains cracked, and history remains incomplete. We can measure them, scan them, and simulate them, but we cannot fully explain them. And maybe that is the point. These monuments do not exist to reassure us of human progress. They exist to remind us that the past was not simple, not primitive, and not fully understood. Stone remembers what history forgets. And sometimes, it refuses to tell us why. There are mysteries that survive not because they are hidden, but because they were deliberately erased, and nowhere is that erasure more haunting than in the story of lost knowledge, ideas written down, preserved, protected, and then allowed to disappear as if humanity collectively decided it was safer not to remember. At the center of this absence stands the Library of Alexandria, a place so influential that even its destruction reshaped the future of human civilization. Founded in the early 3rd century BCE in the city built by Alexander the Great, the library was not simply a building filled with scrolls, it was an institution devoted to collecting every piece of knowledge the world had produced. Ships arriving at Alexandria were searched for books, which were copied and stored while the originals were kept. Scholars translated texts from Greek, Egyptian, Persian, Indian, and Babylonian sources, creating the first true global archive of human thought. Mathematics, astronomy, medicine, engineering, philosophy, fields we now study separately, were once preserved side by side in this place. Figures like Euclid, Eratosthenes, and Archimedes worked within its walls, and Eratosthenes even calculated the circumference of the Earth with remarkable accuracy using nothing but shadows and geometry. Yet today, not a single stone of the original library remains, and the knowledge it held exists only as fragments echoed in later works. What makes the loss of the Library of Alexandria so disturbing is not that it was destroyed, but that no one can agree on how. Some blame Julius Caesar, whose burning of ships during a civil war may have spread fire into the city. Others point to religious conflict centuries later, when pagan institutions were dismantled under Christian rule. Still others suggest the final blow came during the Muslim conquest of Egypt. Modern historians increasingly believe the truth is more gradual and more tragic. The library was not destroyed in a single moment, but slowly neglected, defunded, damaged, and abandoned as political priorities shifted and Alexandria lost its status as the intellectual capital of the world. Knowledge, once centralized and protected, became scattered and vulnerable. Scrolls decayed. Copying slowed. Entire disciplines vanished simply because no one was left who knew they existed. This pattern of disappearance did not end with Alexandria. Across Europe and Asia, texts vanished as empires rose and fell, languages evolved, and belief systems replaced one another. One of the most unsettling examples of this loss is the Rohank Codex, a manuscript discovered in Hungary in the 19th century that remains undeciphered to this day. Unlike ancient languages that can be gradually understood through comparative study, the Rohank Codex resists every attempt at interpretation. Its pages are filled with hundreds of unique symbols arranged in a script that appears to flow from right to left, yet corresponds to no known writing system. The illustrations within the manuscript depict scenes of battle, worship, and ritual that seem to blend Christian, Islamic, and pagan imagery into a single narrative. Crosses appear alongside crescents. Figures kneel before symbols that have no known meaning. No key exists. No parallel text has ever been found. Some scholars believe the Rohank Codex is a hoax, a clever fabrication designed to confuse. Others argue it may be the product of a secretive religious sect or a coded historical record meant to hide its meaning from outsiders. What makes the hoax theory difficult to accept is the sheer effort involved. Creating hundreds of pages of consistent script with no known errors would require extraordinary dedication, especially for a forgery with no clear benefit. And if it is genuine, then it represents an entire system of writing, thought, and belief that vanished without leaving a trace elsewhere. That possibility is more unsettling than the idea of a hoax, because it suggests that entire cultures may have existed and disappeared without being recorded by history. The idea that knowledge can vanish completely is deeply uncomfortable for modern societies that believe progress is cumulative and permanent. We assume that once something is discovered, it remains available forever. But history does not support that belief. Technologies disappear. Languages die. Ideas are forgotten when they no longer serve the needs of those in power. The ancient world understood this fragility far better than we do. Knowledge was power, and power was guarded. That is why certain texts were hidden, encoded, or deliberately destroyed. Some information was considered dangerous, not because it was false, but because it challenged authority. This fear of forbidden knowledge is echoed in religious traditions, mythologies, and legal systems across civilizations. From the biblical story of the Tree of Knowledge to medieval bans on certain scientific works, humanity has repeatedly drawn lines around what should and should not be known. The Codex Gigas, the Rohank Codex, and the lost works of Alexandria all sit on the wrong side of those lines. They represent curiosity without permission. And history has not been kind to such curiosity. What we must confront is the possibility that our current understanding of the past is not incomplete by accident, but by design. Victors write history, but they also erase it. When empires collapse, libraries burn. When religions change, texts are condemned. When languages fade, meaning dissolves. The silence surrounding certain ancient achievements, advanced engineering, precise astronomical knowledge, complex mathematics, may not be evidence that such knowledge never existed, but that it was never allowed to survive. Modern archaeology has begun to uncover physical traces of what texts failed to preserve. Structures like Göbekli Tepe suggest organized religious belief existed long before agriculture, overturning long-held assumptions about the development of civilization. Stone constructions like Baalbek and the pyramids imply engineering capabilities that should not align with known tools. These discoveries force us to reconsider what may have been lost along the way. If knowledge can disappear for thousands of years, then what we consider impossible today may simply be forgotten. The loss of ancient knowledge is not just a historical tragedy, it is a warning. Our digital age gives the illusion of permanence, yet information has never been more centralized, more fragile, or more easily erased. Servers fail. Formats become obsolete. Political forces manipulate narratives. Just as papyrus rotted and libraries burned, data can vanish, censored or corrupted without ceremony. The difference is that we believe ourselves immune to the mistakes of the past. The Library of Alexandria is often romanticized as a symbol of enlightenment destroyed by ignorance. But perhaps its deeper lesson is more uncomfortable. Knowledge requires constant protection, humility, and openness to survive. When those qualities fade, information does not merely disappear, it is replaced by certainty, dogma, and silence. The Rohank Codex remains unread. Countless ancient works are known only by title. Entire sciences may have risen and fallen without leaving more than a whisper. History is not a straight line of progress. It is a landscape marked by peaks of understanding and valleys of forgetting. And somewhere within those valleys lie answers we no longer know how to ask. The past is not finished with us. It is waiting, fragmented, buried, and incomplete, until we are willing to admit that we do not know nearly as much as we think we do. Some civilizations do not fall with fire and conquest, but simply slip beneath the surface of the world, erased not by enemies but by nature itself, and the most haunting among them is Doggerland, a lost landscape that once connected Britain to mainland Europe and now lies drowned beneath the cold waters of the North Sea. 10,000 years ago, this region was not an ocean but a vast stretch of fertile plains, forests, rivers, and marshlands where human communities lived, hunted, traded, and raised families. Archaeological evidence pulled from fishing nets and dredging operations, stone tools, animal bones, human artifacts, confirms that Doggerland was once one of the richest environments in prehistoric Europe. People walked freely between what we now call England, the Netherlands, Germany, and Scandinavia, unaware that their world was living on borrowed time. As the last ice age ended, melting glaciers slowly raised sea levels, eating away at the edges of Doggerland generation by generation. Villages retreated inland, shorelines shifted, and hunting grounds vanished, but life adapted, until it could not. Around 8,200 years ago, a catastrophic event known as the Storegga Slide triggered a massive underwater landslide off the coast of Norway, sending a tsunami racing across the North Sea. Walls of water slammed into Doggerland, flooding entire regions in hours. Some areas may have survived temporarily as islands, but within centuries, the land was gone. What makes this loss especially chilling is that it happened silently, with no written record, no warning preserved in myth or legend. An entire world vanished, taking its stories, languages, and cultures with it. Only now, through seismic mapping used by oil companies, are scientists reconstructing the rivers, hills, and settlements that once existed there. Doggerland is not just a lost land, it is a reminder that civilization can be erased without ceremony. A similar silence surrounds the disappearance of the Clovis people of North America, a culture identified by its distinctive stone spear points and remarkable hunting skill. Emerging around 13,000 years ago, the Clovis people spread rapidly across the continent, leaving behind tools of astonishing craftsmanship. They hunted mammoths, giant sloths, and other megafauna now long extinct, thriving in an Ice Age world that demanded intelligence and adaptability. And then, just as suddenly as they appeared, the Clovis culture vanished from the archaeological record within a few hundred years. No gradual decline. No clear successor. Just absence. Scientists have debated the cause for decades. Climate change at the end of the Ice Age reshaped environments faster than many species could adapt, wiping out the large animals the Clovis depended on. Others point to evidence of a cosmic impact, layers of unusual materials, widespread fires, and sudden cooling suggesting a meteor or comet fragment struck Earth, triggering devastation across continents. Still others believe the Clovis people survived by adapting and blending into other cultures, leaving behind their tools but not their name. What remains disturbing is how fragile even advanced human societies can be when faced with forces beyond their control. The Clovis did not fail through ignorance or weakness. They were undone by a changing world. Nature has erased civilizations before, and it will do so again. Rising seas, shifting climates, and geological disasters have shaped human history far more than wars ever could. Göbekli Tepe survived because it was deliberately buried. Doggerland vanished because it was not. The Clovis left tools behind, but no explanation. These losses challenge the comforting idea that progress protects us. They suggest that survival is temporary, knowledge fragile, and permanence an illusion. What connects these vanished worlds is not just disappearance, but memory, or the lack of it. Doggerland has no myths. The Clovis left no legends. Their endings were not preserved because there was no one left to tell the story. That is the most unsettling truth of all. History is not a complete record. It is a partial survival of voices lucky enough to endure. As modern coastlines face rising seas and shifting climates, Doggerland becomes more than a prehistoric curiosity. It becomes a warning written in sediment and saltwater. Civilizations can drown quietly. Cultures can end without witnesses. And when they do, the Earth does not mourn, it simply moves on, waiting for the next chapter to begin. Some mysteries do not announce themselves through destruction or disappearance, but through quiet contradiction, objects that exist when, by all accepted logic, they should not. These artifacts do not shatter history with explosions, they erode it slowly, forcing scholars to question timelines, capabilities, and assumptions that once felt secure. One of the most unsettling examples is the Piri Reis map, drawn in 1513 by an Ottoman admiral and cartographer whose name would have remained obscure had it not been for a single fragment of parchment discovered centuries later. At first glance, the map appears unremarkable, depicting parts of Europe, Africa, and the newly discovered lands of the Americas. But closer examination reveals something deeply unsettling. The coastlines are rendered with an accuracy that should not have been possible in the early 16th century. Even more disturbing is what appears to be the coastline of Antarctica, depicted without ice, centuries before the continent was officially discovered, and even longer before its ice-free shape was known through modern seismic surveys. Piri Reis himself offered an explanation that only deepened the mystery. In his notes, he claimed the map was compiled from over 20 older source maps, some dating back to the time of Alexander the Great. If true, this would imply the existence of ancient cartographic knowledge far more advanced than anything credited to early civilizations. Skeptics argue that the supposed Antarctic coastline may actually be a distorted representation of South America, or the result of creative guesswork. Yet modern comparisons using satellite imagery show striking similarities between the map's southern landmass and Antarctica's subglacial topography. This raises an uncomfortable question. Who mapped Antarctica before it was covered in ice, and how? The Piri Reis map is not alone. Across museums and collections lie objects that refuse to align with their historical context. Consider the Roman dodecahedrons, small, hollow bronze objects with 12 pentagonal faces, each pierced with circular holes of varying sizes, and small knobs protruding from every corner. More than 100 have been discovered across Europe, yet none have been found in Rome itself. No ancient text mentions them. No artwork depicts their use. They appear suddenly in the archaeological record between the 2nd and 4th centuries and then vanish entirely. Theories range from candle holders to measuring devices, from knitting tools to religious objects. Yet none fully explain their design, distribution, or apparent importance. Some were found buried with coins, suggesting value. Others were placed in graves, hinting at ritual significance. But without context, the dodecahedrons remain mute, their purpose lost to time. Then there are ancient maps beyond Piri Reis that challenge accepted history. The Orontius Phineas map of 1531 also depicts Antarctica, complete with mountain ranges and rivers, again without ice. The accuracy of these features aligns eerily well with modern radar scans beneath the Antarctic ice sheet. These maps suggest either an extraordinary coincidence or access to data that should not have existed. If ancient civilizations possessed advanced surveying techniques, why is there no clear evidence elsewhere? And if they did not, how did such information survive long enough to be copied by Renaissance cartographers? Even more unsettling are artifacts that appear technologically advanced beyond their era. The Antikythera mechanism, recovered from a Greek shipwreck dated to around 100 BCE, is often described as the world's first analog computer. Its complex system of bronze gears was capable of predicting eclipses, tracking planetary movements, and modeling astronomical cycles with astonishing precision. Nothing like it appears again for over 1,000 years. There is no gradual evolution of similar devices, no intermediate designs, no instructional texts. It emerges fully formed and disappears just as completely. Historians once dismissed it as an anomaly, but modern reconstructions confirm its sophistication. This raises a troubling possibility: ancient technological progress may not have been linear. Knowledge may have surged, stagnated, and vanished multiple times throughout history. The existence of such objects forces us to confront a difficult truth. Our understanding of the past is based not on what existed, but on what survived. Wood rots. Paper burns. Metals corrode. Knowledge that is not continually preserved is easily lost. Entire sciences may have risen and fallen without leaving more than a fragment behind. What we call primitive may simply be incomplete. These contradictions become even more troubling when placed alongside lost civilizations. Göbekli Tepe rewrote the timeline of organized religion. Stone spheres in Costa Rica challenge assumptions about pre-Columbian engineering. Baalbek stones defy modern physics. The Antikythera mechanism mocks the idea of ancient simplicity. Each artifact alone might be dismissed as an outlier. Together, they form a pattern, one that suggests humanity's past may be far more complex than the neat progression taught in textbooks. What is often overlooked is the role of cultural collapse in erasing knowledge. When civilizations fall, practical skills die with them. Libraries burn. Experts are killed or dispersed. Languages disappear. The Roman Empire collapsed, and Europe entered centuries of technological regression. Chinese inventions were lost during dynastic transitions. The Mayan writing system nearly vanished after conquest. These were not isolated events. They were systemic losses. If such regression occurred repeatedly across millennia, it becomes possible that advanced knowledge emerged more than once, and vanished just as often. Skeptics argue that extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence, and they are right. But absence of evidence is not evidence of absence. The sea swallowed Doggerland. Deserts buried ancient cities. Glacier scraped landscapes clean. Entire coastlines vanished beneath rising oceans at the end of the Ice Age. If a civilization had flourished along those coasts, little would remain today. What would survive are anomalies, artifacts out of place, maps ahead of their time, mechanisms without lineage. These objects disturb us because they challenge the comforting belief that humanity is steadily advancing, that we are smarter, more capable, and more enlightened than those who came before. The idea that ancient people may have known things we do not is deeply unsettling. It implies that progress is fragile, reversible, and dependent not on intelligence, but on continuity. Perhaps the greatest danger is not that these mysteries remain unsolved, but that they are dismissed too quickly. When history encounters contradiction, The instinct is often to force it back into familiar frameworks rather than allow those frameworks to be questioned. But true understanding requires discomfort. It requires admitting that our picture of the past is incomplete, provisional, and subject to change. The artifacts that should not exist do not ask us to believe in lost supercivilizations or alien visitors. They ask something far more challenging: to accept that human history is not a straight line, that knowledge can be gained and lost, and that our ancestors may have been capable of brilliance we have yet to rediscover. These objects are not answers. They are questions cast in bronze, ink, and stone. And until we are willing to ask those questions honestly, they will remain exactly where they are, silent, enigmatic, and waiting. There are places on Earth that are not lost, not destroyed, and not hidden by time, but deliberately kept out of reach, spaces where history appears to pause at the edge of permission, and among these, few are as unsettling as Göbekli Tepe and the Hawara Labyrinth, sites that exist in plain sight yet remain only partially understood because access itself has become the barrier. Göbekli Tepe, rising quietly from the plains of southeastern Turkey, should not exist according to everything archaeology once believed. Dating back more than 11,000 years, it predates agriculture, pottery, metal tools, and even settled village life, yet it displays an architectural sophistication that rivals monuments built thousands of years later. Massive T-shaped limestone pillars, some weighing more than 20 tons, were quarried, carved, transported, and erected by hunter-gatherers, people who, according to old models, should not have possessed the organizational capacity or motivation for such a project. The pillars are arranged in circular enclosures, decorated with intricate reliefs of animals: lions, snakes, foxes, vultures, each rendered with precision and intention, suggesting symbolism rather than decoration. No houses surround the site. No graves lie beneath it. There are no hearths, no tools of daily life. Göbekli Tepe was not a city. It was not a settlement. It was something else entirely. What makes Göbekli Tepe even more disturbing is that it was deliberately buried. After centuries, perhaps millennia, of use, its builders filled the enclosures with rubble, sealing the site beneath layers of earth. This was not abandonment. It was preservation. Someone decided this place needed to be hidden, protected, or erased, and they succeeded for over 10,000 years. When archaeologist Klaus Schmidt began excavating in the 1990s, he realized that what had been uncovered was only a fraction of the site. Ground-penetrating surveys suggest dozens of additional circles remain buried, untouched by modern hands. And yet excavation has slowed. Funding is limited. Access is controlled. Much of Göbekli Tepe remains sealed, as if history itself is hesitating. The implications are profound. Göbekli Tepe suggests that religion, ritual, or shared belief may have come before agriculture, not after it. That humans gathered first to worship, not to farm. That civilization may have been born from meaning rather than survival. This overturns decades of academic consensus, and such paradigm shifts are rarely welcomed without resistance. When discoveries challenge foundational assumptions, institutions become cautious. Interpretation becomes conservative. Exploration slows. Not because of conspiracy, but because uncertainty is dangerous to established frameworks. A similar tension surrounds the Hawara Labyrinth in Egypt, a structure described by ancient historians as surpassing even the pyramids in scale and complexity. Herodotus, writing in the 5th century BC, claimed to have seen it with his own eyes, a vast complex of thousands of rooms, half above ground and half below, filled with corridors, courtyards, and chambers covered in hieroglyphs and stonework beyond comparison. Strabo and Diodorus Siculus also described it, each emphasizing its immensity and confusion, a place designed to overwhelm and disorient. According to these accounts, the labyrinth lay near the pyramid of Amenemhat III in the Fayum region and served both religious and funerary purposes. And then, like so many other wonders, it vanished. For centuries, the Hawara Labyrinth was dismissed as exaggeration or myth, another case of ancient writers embellishing reality. But in 2008, researchers using ground-penetrating radar detected massive underground structures beneath the sands near Hawara, walls, chambers, and voids far too regular to be natural formations. The findings suggested a vast subterranean complex exactly where the ancient texts described it. And then, abruptly, the research stopped. Excavation permissions were denied. Reports went unpublished. The site was closed. Official explanations cited conservation concerns and national security. Unofficially, questions multiplied. Why confirm the existence of a structure only to prevent further study? Why leave one of the most significant archaeological discoveries of modern times buried and inaccessible? Egypt is not alone in restricting access to ancient sites. Across the world, sacred spaces remain off-limits, sealed by religious tradition, political control, or fear of destabilizing established narratives. In China, entire regions containing ancient pyramidal structures are closed to foreign researchers. In Tibet, monasteries sit atop ruins that cannot be excavated. In Saudi Arabia, pre-Islamic sites remain largely unexplored. These restrictions are often justified, sometimes reasonably, by concerns over preservation, looting, or cultural respect. But they also create an uncomfortable reality: much of human history exists behind locked doors. What unites Göbekli Tepe and the Hawara Labyrinth is not secrecy for secrecy's sake, but the threat they pose to linear history. Both suggest that ancient people possessed organizational skills, symbolic thinking, and architectural ambition far earlier than expected. Both imply long-lost systems of belief and knowledge. And both raise questions that cannot be easily answered without excavation, analysis, and openness. Yet openness carries risk. New evidence can collapse old timelines. It can challenge national identities. It can destabilize academic careers built on outdated models. There is also a deeper psychological resistance at play. Sacred spaces demand reverence, not dissection. Many cultures believe disturbing such sites invites misfortune or disrespect. In Egypt, tombs are not merely archaeological features, they are resting places. In Turkey, Göbekli Tepe touches on questions of origin, belief, and identity. Once excavation crosses a certain threshold, discovery becomes irreversible. Interpretation becomes unavoidable. And not everyone is ready for the answers that may follow. What if Göbekli Tepe reveals a shared symbolic language that predates known religions? What if the Hawara Labyrinth contains texts or iconography that challenge our understanding of Egyptian cosmology? What if these sites confirm that complex societies existed earlier than accepted, or that advanced knowledge emerged and disappeared more than once? These possibilities are not fringe fantasies. They are logical extensions of evidence already uncovered. History prefers certainty. It is more comfortable with what can be explained than with what must be questioned. And so some doors remain closed. Some chambers remain buried. Some stories remain untold. But silence does not erase reality. It only delays confrontation. Sacred and forbidden spaces remind us that archaeology is not just about digging into the ground. It is about negotiating with belief, power, and fear. Every excavation is a choice. Every sealed site is a statement. And every unanswered question carries weight. Perhaps the greatest irony is that these places were once meant to be seen. Göbekli Tepe was a gathering point. The Hawara Labyrinth was a marvel shown to travelers. They were not secrets in their own time. They became forbidden later, when their meanings grew inconvenient. As long as these sites remain partially buried, history remains incomplete. Not because the past is unknowable, but because access is withheld. And that raises a final, unsettling question: how much of what we call mystery is truly lost, and how much is simply locked away? When all these mysteries are placed side by side, a pattern begins to emerge, not a pattern of answers, but of repetition, silence, and loss, suggesting that human history is not a steady climb upward but a fragile cycle of discovery and forgetting. Civilizations rise, gather knowledge, master their environments, and then, through war, nature, belief, or neglect, collapse, taking much of what they knew with them. The Library of Alexandria was not unique in its destruction, it was simply the most famous. Doggerland drowned quietly beneath rising seas. The Clovis people vanished without leaving their final story behind. Göbekli Tepe was deliberately buried. The Hawara Labyrinth was sealed. Tombs remain unopened. Manuscripts remain unreadable. Maps depict lands that should not have been known. Artifacts exist without explanation. Again and again, history presents us with the same uncomfortable truth: humanity forgets far more than it remembers. What is most unsettling is not that ancient people may have known things we do not, but that we may never know what those things were. Knowledge is not immortal. It survives only when it is valued, preserved, and passed on without interruption. Once that chain is broken, even the greatest achievements can dissolve into myth. The past we study today is not the full story of humanity, it is the version that survived chance. What burned, sank, eroded, or was deliberately erased is gone, leaving gaps that modern science struggles to fill. And into those gaps rush speculation, disbelief, and wonder. Modern civilization often assumes that it stands at the peak of human understanding, protected by technology and global communication. But history offers no guarantee that this moment will last. Data can be deleted. Cities can flood. Power structures can collapse. Languages can disappear within generations. If our world were to fracture tomorrow, what would remain 10,000 years from now? Broken satellites? Stone foundations? A few undecipherable symbols carved into metal? Would future civilizations look back at us with the same confusion we feel toward the ancients, wondering how such advanced people could vanish so completely? These mysteries are not warnings carved in stone, they are whispers carried through time, reminding us that certainty is temporary, that progress is reversible, that civilization is not a destination but a condition that must be constantly defended. The unanswered questions of the past are not failures of science, they are reminders of humility. They tell us that we are part of a much longer story, one filled with forgotten chapters and lost voices. Perhaps the most profound realization is this: the greatest mystery is not whether ancient civilizations possessed advanced knowledge, but why humanity keeps losing what it learns. Whether through arrogance, conflict, fear, or indifference, the same cycle repeats. And until we understand that pattern, we risk becoming another unanswered question for those who come after us. The past is not silent because it has nothing to say. It is silent because we no longer know how to listen.